Hello and welcome to the episode 205 of Sutton Impact Family Style. I'm Jason.
And I'm Bill, and we got some interesting questions to debate today. Still a lot of NFL. I think Jason and I are not over the NFL yet. It's still February.
No, we're not close.
But then we'll be into the draft. Then we'll be in the training camp. So we really never get over the NFL.
No, it's the best.
But the question I was going to pose to Jason was, a year from now, who's happier, the Colts or the Eagles with Carson Wentz situation?
I think from an Eagles standpoint, you can't. I mean, it's just like the Steelers now with the Big Ben contract. Like you made the deal. You signed Carson Wentz to this giant contract, and you're going to have to eat that dead money. But I do feel it's like a sunk cost. I mean, he only really had one outstanding season where he got hurt and Nick Foles led him to the Super Bowl. And maybe that outstanding season had more to do with the rest of the Philadelphia Eagles that had to do with Carson Wentz. Because if you look at him every other year, he's been kind of to just downright awful. So, and there clearly wasn't much of a market for him, around the rest of the league. They got a 3 this year and a 2 the following year that could be a 1 if he's really good. But
Yep.
In the stories I heard, I think everyone heard the same thing, that it wasn't just his play on the field, that Carson Wentz lost the locker room and that people didn't seem to really enjoy his gingerness and most of all who he was as a person, and he wasn't the leader they wanted. So, I mean, I think, you talk about sunk cost, and sometimes, you spend money on something and it's just going to be a waste of money.
I'm going to go that I think the Colts are going to be happy because I think he's going to perform well under Frank Reich.
Okay. I mean, he's going into a situation where if the Colts can add one more playmaker on offense, I mean, you got Jonathan Taylor, you have one of the best offensive lines in football, a really good defense. Pittman Jr. out of USC last year looked pretty good at wide receiver for a rookie. I know he got kind of overshadowed by, obviously Jefferson and Ayuk and Claypool, but he was also very solid. I think T.Y. Hilton maybe still has a year or two left, but if you had one more playmaker on the outside, I mean, he literally will have everything he possibly needs. Because Jonathan Taylor looks like he might be, conversation of best running back in the league the next 2 years.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah.
All right. My second question for you involves the Jets. Do you keep Sam Darnold and take the number 2 pick and try and give him a playmaker? Do you trade him and then then draft a quarterback at number 2? Or do you trade him and make a run at signing Deshaun Watson? What is your those all 3 could happen. If you're the Jets general manager, what's your preferred scenario?
I think if I can get a 25-year-old Deshaun Watson in New York with the Giants and Daniel Jones struggling a little bit, I think I could be the story. I could be the team that for the next decade, I mean, no, it didn't happen with the Clippers because the Lakers got really good again. But I think if you're a little kid growing up in New York and you get to watch Deshaun Watson for the next decade, or Daniel Jones and whoever else the next Giants quarterback is, I think that could pull me towards the Jets. Like I'm watching, one of the most exciting, probably second best quarterback in football under the age of 25.
So what is your package to the Texans for Deshaun Watson?
Well, I'm going to probably see if I can flip Darnold for a similar package back to the Wentz thing, where maybe I can get, a 3 this year and a conditional 2 moving forward, or, I don't know what his value is. I don't know where he ranks on the. I know he's 23 years old and he came out with a lot of hype, so maybe he's got more value. Maybe you can get a late 1. Maybe a team like the Steelers see something in Sam Darnold. As a Steeler fan, I'm not sure I want that, but you never know. But I would give them the 2.
Would you give up Sam Darnold and the 2 for Deshaun Watson?
I think you have to give up Sam Darnold the 2, your late 1, and your additional 1 the next season, and maybe like a 2 or a 3 as well, which puts you in a tough situation. But the Jets also have a ton of cap room. So if you're the Jets, you got Allen Robinson, you got Juju Smith-Schuster, you have some productive wide receivers that are free agents that are young. You trade them, get Deshaun Watson, you got the nice tackle from last year, and just move forward with Deshaun Watson. And I think that would be my plan A, but it sounds like the Texans are willing to let it get ugly. My plan B, I think, would be to trade Darnold and draft a quarterback, just because I think, sometimes it's best if players and coaches everyone parts ways and you start over. Because if you can, if you're the Jets, you're hoping you're not up here again at number 2. And if Zach Wilson is that good, or Justin Fields, or Trey Lance, whoever you think could be the next guy. You get 5 years to grow with that quarterback, as opposed to Darnold, who's already in year 4 and is going to have to get paid next year.
Okay.
And again, I don't, and I probably would draft. I mean, if I was the Jets and I was staying at 2, I'd probably draft Sewell, the tackle out of Oregon, and get a playmaker with my next pick in the first round, and just surround him with 2 bookend tackles that are maybe, build the best offensive line in football and just go from there.
Okay.
Or if you're going to keep Darnold, you could obviously, with quarterback hungry teams like Carolina, maybe Philadelphia still in the top 10, maybe you trade down, grab an extra pick or 2, and add even more weapons for Sam Darnold. And
I can't remember a year with this much quarterback flex in the market.
There's also a lot of really good free agents on the wire. Especially, like I said, you got Allen Robinson, Juju Smith-Schuster, and there's 2 or 3 other receivers right now that are, either, you could argue Allen Robinson's a 1 and maybe Juju Smith's a 1B. But you've got some big, some good, young, talented, productive wide receivers. So, and a wide receiver heavy draft. It seems like there's a lot of talent on offense available. Yep. Now, what is your scenario?
We can see a lot more different quarterback starters next year, though.
Oh, yeah.
In about 8 or 9 different markets.
If you're the Jets GM, what are you doing? If those options are available.
I'm probably going to go all in to get Deshaun Watson because I can't afford to miss. And I missed on Darnold. And I'm not going to, I could just as easily miss on the number 2 or the number 1. I mean, the quarterbacks, last year was a good quarterback year. Are they going to be as good as they were last year? And I don't think from the Jets, if I can get a sure thing, I'm going sure thing.
Agreed.
I think in that market, you have to be a little bit different.
Yeah.
In a 2-team market and then a big media savvy market with really passionate fans, I think you got to go all in to get somebody you know is going to be able to play. Because you haven't had it for a long time in that market.
No. And if you have Deshaun Watson on your team, you're immediately relevant. The Bills are probably still the favorite to win that division. You assume Belichick's got a revenge year where he wants to prove that he can win again without Brady. I don't know if that would be this year or not. I don't know who he gets a quarterback. And upcoming Dolphins. But if you're the Jets with Deshaun Watson, you're in the conversation again, and you're not the afterthought in the division, media-wise.
I keep hearing Marcus Mariota to the Patriots.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. I've heard, run it back with one more year at Cam Newton. Obviously, because of, he played at Alabama and he might be available around pick 15, people think Mac Jones. He's the interesting one in the draft because he seems to be the one that, coming into the year was not a first-round pick. And
I'd say even halfway through the year he wasn't a first-round pick.
Wasn't a first-round pick. And he doesn't have any, he seems to be a great leader with an average arm and moves well in the pocket, but, he rushed for 14 yards this season, which is like 1.01 yards per game. And not that you have to be a running quarterback to win, but that seems like, you'd expect a few more yards out of your quarterback over the course of the season.
For sure.
Especially when you're Alabama and it's not like he's on his butt getting sacked all the time, getting negative yards. So you have to wonder, once he gets to the NFL and maybe he doesn't have the best team by far with, I don't know, how many first rounders does Alabama have? There's probably 10 Alabama.
Got at least 5 again.
Yeah, and they'll probably have 10 guys that go in the first 3 rounds. So, And as long as we're talking draft quarterback, we talked a little bit off air, but I heard somebody make this comparison, and I think it's pretty apt. Before the last season, Justin Herbert was a lock for the first round, and then we watched him again, and people sort of turned on him a little bit, and he turned out to be far and away the best player in this class. And he looks like a 10, 15-year NFL starter. And Justin Fields at Ohio State, it was him, Trevor Lawrence was 1A, and he was 1B. And that's going back to high school when you hear all these great stories about Justin Fields. And then he had a couple of shaky games. And he looked great against Clemson. And I think, he's being, now they're talking about him as the 3rd, maybe the 4th quarterback drafted. And you just wonder, did we just get to watch him too much? Now he's been picked apart by scouts. And,
Yeah. Trey Lance is from North Dakota State, right?
Yeah.
And I wonder if there's going to be some Carson Wentz hangover there.
Yeah, I think there could be. And then, he had his one game to show. He's a 1 year starter with one game this past year. And he didn't really ball out this last year. He had a couple turnovers in this last game. But I mean, it's a weird circumstance.
Yeah, we've been less scouting this year, more video. Yeah, so we'll have to see. It's going to be interesting.
And
it's going to be a fun coverage of the NFL draft for us.
It will be. I mean, the draft is always super exciting. And if you're a draft watcher like myself, turn off Twitter. You don't need to see the pick 30 seconds before it's announced. It's no fun that way. Just let it happen on TV like you're watching a movie.
Want to do our steal a moment before we switch?
I think so. So, Kevin Colbert, because it's actually been a big national story too, with Ryan Clark on ESPN and everybody else talking about it. But if you listen to what Kevin Colbert said, which is he's like, we need to keep evaluating things. We can't bring them back at that number. The Steelers are about the Roonies and winning. And then he's our quarterback currently or at the moment, which is exactly what the Rams said about Jared Goff right before he was gone.
Yep.
And, we talked offline, like the contract's the contract. And you're going to eat $21 million in dead money. But I think if you're the Steelers, you got to look at it as a rip the Band-Aid off year. Like, eat the $21 million this year. Don't bring them back at a number where you're spreading dead money over the next 4 seasons. You're not winning this. You're probably not winning the division. You're probably not making the playoffs no matter who your quarterback is this year. So, outside of a miracle, and they're not getting Deshaun Watson.
No. And I'm with you. I would, I appreciate everything he's done for the franchise. I would like to see him ride off in the sunset like Bettis did, not like Franco Harris did. I don't want to see that happen.
And I
don't want to see him play another year for somebody else.
And this is somewhat before my time, but I don't remember that Terry Bradshaw had he was always just a great Steeler quarterback for most of my understanding of the life. I never knew he had a sour ending with the Steelers and that they were worried about the same thing with Ben. But I feel like the Steelers have been very supportive of Roethlisberger over the last 2 decades. And he's done some things that I don't want to get into the details of everything, but if you want to Google him, like, he's not been the ideal Pittsburgh Steeler or NFL person or man or whatever you want to call him the entire time. And the Steelers have stood by him. So I don't think they owe him anything else. And I think a $21 million check on your way out the door is more than enough. Yeah.
And a nice retirement and put him in the Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
Do everything you need to do. Just let it go and just close the door. I agree. I wouldn't have said that a year ago, but I say it now.
Yeah. Well,
you would have said it a year ago.
I would have. I just, like I said, I went on record. I didn't understand, like, you get Britt. I know he was a year younger, but obviously not in the same shape, Brady or Breeze. But those guys were operating on 1-year contracts. And with a year left on his deal, you gave him this ridiculous 2-year extension that just made no sense financially to me. But
yeah,
it is what it is.
Well, let's switch gears and talk some hoops.
Let's talk hoops.
And I want to go March Madness first because I'm excited about March Madness.
Okay.
Because I think it's wide open. I think it's the widest open I've ever seen.
I know who I'm pulling for.
I'm pulling for Gonzaga.
I'm pulling for Gonzaga.
Yeah, I love Gonzaga. I love watching them play.
I mean, they have a top 5 pick on that team. And, I just want to see the Zags.
There's a fun team to watch.
They're a fun team to watch. And I want to see the Zags. I want to see the little, I don't know what you call them. They're not exactly a little guy, but they're not exactly a major conference team either. Because they've been around, I feel like it's been like 20 years of good Gonzaga basketball.
Yeah.
And I just like to see them get a national championship.
But, there's some real interesting stories. I've been watching a lot of Big 12, and there's a lot of good teams in Big 12 right now.
Yeah.
But there's not yesterday Texas had West Virginia down by 18 and lost. So, down 18 at the half and lost. It didn't go to overtime, just was regulation. So I just think that there's a lot of parity, and then you got COVID. So on any given day, your roster, your starting 5 could be different.
Yeah, that's very true.
Right?
Oh, yeah. Every day. And then, there is the psychological stress of COVID, where you people in your life that are sick, people you're worried about your own health. There's so many factors that just, pop in, pop out. But It will be exciting to watch a tournament again, because the one and done tournament, especially that first weekend is always just so fantastic to watch.
I know. And so this year, I probably won't. Well, as was last year, but last year was in the tournament. But my guys and I are not being able to go this year. So I'll get to watch them all, and I will be excited. And I'll probably have some stuff on the smoker, and I'll probably have a nice, relaxing 4 days and
Yeah.
do nothing but watch basketball.
It's as good as it gets.
Yeah.
Well,
But I'm excited about it. I'm really excited about it. I'm talking NBA, so I made a point to watch the Jazz this week.
did you watch them lose?
The Blues.
Yeah.
No, I was lose. No, I watched them win a game.
Okay.
And I like the team. They're a very, very team-oriented team.
Very
That's
much.
what I would say.
Yes.
They play well with each other. They seem to have a little bit of depth. They can play defense. They're I don't know if they're a fun team to watch, but they're an interesting team to watch.
Yeah. I'd say they have a little bit of the Spurs vibe to them.
That is
Right.
exactly the point. That's exactly who they are.
Where there's
It's
some
like,
Yeah.
if you're looking for something spectacular or this exciting, riveting player that you want to watch, like if I watch Golden State, I love watching Steph Curry.
Oh yeah.
If Klay Thompson's playing, I love watching Klay Thompson. But I also like watching Draymond Green. I mean, there's a lot of storyline for me to watch there,
There is.
and I enjoy that. But Utah is vanilla.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the Spurs. And I was always a defender of the Spurs when I worked at the NBA. And everybody would say they're blah, they're boring. I said, yeah, all they do is win.
They win. They make crisp passes. They run an offense. They play team defense. They do all the things that if you're an NBA coach or probably a high school coach of basketball, like you're like these fundamentals are. I mean, the big fundamental was Tim Duncan. Like that's who they are. And Donovan Mitchell doesn't quite provide that excitement factor. And I think people expect him to, but he doesn't quite do it.
No, but he is fun to watch.
He is.
But I've watched him one night, and he's a lot of fun to watch. I watched him another night. He's good, but he's not fun.
No. I think his most exciting thing all year has been his feud with Shaq, which has just been, bizarre to watch. A little uncomfortable at times, I think.
Yeah.
I know Shaq is defending it as, I'm a Hall of Fame NBA champion, MVP. I want to push Donovan to make it better for Donovan, which I think they definitely accomplished with Joel Embiid. I think that was a productive. We think you're a great player. These are the areas we see you're weak, and we really are rooting for you. With the Mitchell thing, I don't know anyone. If you will go on YouTube and watch some of the highlights, it feels like it's a very personal, uncomfortable situation, and it feels more like Donovan Mitchell dated Shaq's daughter and jilted her at the altar than him trying to actually do anything productive with Donovan Mitchell. It feels like there's some sort of underneath personal beef with him, more so than I'm being, the good veteran, the wise older man helping you out.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see how it plays out. So we see that LeBron's running mate's out for 4 weeks.
This is his MVP push right here.
It is his MVP push. And, the calf injury, you got to be careful.
You do.
It's not, we both had it. You know how long it lasts. It's a lingering injury.
It's a lingering one. And even when you're cleared to go back and run and play again, like you get the slightest tinge back there and like it changes the way you operate, at least for a full year.
Oh, I agree. I mean, when I had it and I was playing softball, I would just stop.
You just stop.
I wouldn't want to push it because I knew how much pain that was. I mean, when I did it, when I had it, I thought somebody shot me with a gun. I went right down, and it was unbelievable pain, really quickly. And you couldn't put your foot on the ground.
That's exactly right. I remember I was running after
all that, and so that when it comes time to push it, it's hard to push it.
Yeah, I remember I was running for a loose ball. I felt it, and like you said, it felt like somebody punched me really hard in the back of the leg or shot or whatever it was. And limping, I immediately turned around. I was going to fight somebody, yell at somebody for hitting me. But it was just
and you find out you're by yourself.
Yeah. I was like, I'm 10 yards ahead of everybody. I'm not sure what's going on. Like, I don't know what happened. It's weird. But yeah.
Yeah. So we're watching Brooklyn. We're watching Harden as the point and Kyrie as the 2.
Yeah. And they won without KD the other day.
Yeah. So what do you think? What are you thinking about the Nets as they advance? How far are they going to go?
They would be, if I had to pick a team in the East, they'd be my team in the East. As good as Philadelphia looks, I think, other people have made this point, so I don't want to sound like it's my own original point. But if you play a 7-game series, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're probably going to have a Durant game where Durant is just the best player on the floor by far, puts up 40, wins that game. He pushes his team over. You're having a Kyrie game where Kyrie, we've seen him, he's an amazing offensive talent. He can just go off. Then you have a Harden game where he goes off. I think that's 3 wins in a series right there against the Philadelphia where there's just so much firepower. And then, if 2 of them go off one night or they all hit threes, I know it'll upset the old guard of basketball to watch this, 3-star offensive juggernaut team win, but I think they're going to do it. And then I think the other thing that's going to annoy the crap out of people is there's going to be a guy where you're like, why? How did that guy get bought out and not traded as a big that ends up on the Nets? And I don't know who that's going to be, but I think it's going to happen. And that'll
better be a defender.
Yeah. But again, they're so efficient on offense and so scared.
Yeah, they're very reminiscent of the Golden State when they had all their weapons. They're very reminiscent of that. That they're going to put 100, no less than an off night is going to be 120.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's who they are. But, on the other hand, they're not going to stop you. So you're going to get your 120.
Exactly.
It'll be interesting. It'll be fun to watch.
But again, when they play the Sixers in the conference finals, I think Embiid can put up 50, 20, and 5 every night. And that still might not be enough. He can have the greatest center, against any playoff averages of all time, and I think they still might not have enough.
Well, let's switch gears now and go to probably the most interesting story of the week.
Oh, well,
Fernando Tatis, $340 million, and he's 22.
He's 22.
And it's a 14-year deal, which would take him to he's 36, which we know. We've seen enough of these contracts to know that you rarely make it all the way through. But on the other hand, he's a very exciting player.
Incredibly exciting.
In fact, I'm doing a show tomorrow with Jason Stark, this baseball writer, on the face of baseball. And his question to me was, can Fernando Tatis be the face of baseball?
Well, I think one thing they have to do is not shame him when he celebrates home runs. Don't let these old idiot baseball fans and baseball writers and, I love a bat flip after a home run. I want to see Tatis, if you don't like it, don't let him get a hit off you. Because remember last year we talked about on the podcast. Tatis he crushed the ball, did a little mini, but not a disrespect, just a celebratory thing. And he apologized for it. It's nobody wants to see that. That's not the Twitter, Instagram, social media world you're living if you're trying to create young fans. You need Tatis to be Tatis. You don't want to censor him. And if he's going to be the face, it has to be because he's allowed to be himself and not have to adhere to these ridiculous old school baseball rules.
My answer is going to be no.
No.
And the reason it's no is he's on the West Coast.
And he's a Padre.
No, the Padres are going to be on TV a lot on Sunday Night Baseball and other things. They're going to get a lot of play, just not enough play.
Yeah.
And their rivalry with the Dodgers is going to be really good this year. That's going to be fun to watch because they both spent really high and have a lot. The Padres infield is $900 million.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
And they picked up a bunch of pitchers. They spent a lot of money. But can you be on the West Coast and play in your games at 10:30 East Coast time and be the face of baseball? And I don't think you can. That's one of my arguments. My other argument is that I don't think there's going to be one face. I think there's going to be multiple faces. And it's like a conglomerate. It's still, Mike Trout is still in the mix, even though he doesn't want to be in the mix, but he's still in the mix. Ohtani could be in the mix for certain people. There's a lot of things that go on. There's a lot of personalities.
Is Bryce Harper the biggest face of baseball right now?
Let those personalities be front and center.
I feel like, as a very casual baseball fan, Bryce Harper is the person I feel like most non-baseball people know. Like, I know who he is when I see him in commercials right away. There's never a moment of hesitation. And I know he's not like the player people thought he was going to be, but like, he's the player I recognize the most. Like, he could walk in the room, I'd be like, oh shit, it's Bryce Harper. And again, as good as Trout is, it may take me a few minutes to recognize Mike Trout.
Well, the other thing I would say about Tatis is that Tatis played for the Yankees. He would be the face of baseball.
Yeah. But again, I think, if you have a lot of social media breakouts and you let him do what he wanted to, like what you shamed him for doing last year, I think that's going to help him. Because if things are trending on Twitter, like, you don't just want to see him crush the ball 500 yards out of the stadium, or feet out of the stadium, not yards. But like, you want to see the personality. If there's a bat flip, you want to see the bat flip. If there's a little point, like, those are things those unwritten rules of baseball that are just, we criticize the no fun league, the NFL, and the NFL's tried to like come back a little bit, but baseball has always been the super no fun league, I feel like. And I feel like they fought it longer than everybody. They're still fighting this unwritten rule battle about, your behavior after celebratory plays, which is just dumb.
Good points. We'll see what happens in spring training. I just think he's an unbelievable player. He's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, and it's like the Mahomes deal. Like, Mahomes assigned to that 10-year deal because it's like, you know what you have in Mahomes. Like, you do not want Mahomes on another team for the next decade. And Tatis, again, is 22 and is absolutely phenomenal. And assuming he stays healthy and mentally and physically, like, that's the guy you want on your team. And eventually the contract becomes a bargain at some point. You're hoping if baseball continues, growth and everything else.
Well, on the other note about baseball is I definitely think there's going to be a lockout next year.
Wow.
It's too crazy. I mean, the disparity among spending and players and affordability and competition is just too crazy.
It is. Well, you want to hop back to basketball for a fun story?
Yes, for sure.
So we have the way the NBA votes their all-stars in. And we just had the all-star where, we saw, Doncic bow down and say that he shouldn't be the starter, that Dame should be the starter, and let Dame whine some more about not being a starter. That's great. But it's the league, you have the reporters that vote, whoever gets a vote. You have the fan vote, and you have the player vote. And people always make fun of the fan vote being the least educated. They don't know the game, yada, yada, yada. But the players, 311 players received a starting all-star nod this year. 311.
So that's a little bit, let's see, 30 teams, 10, 300, 450. So about 60% of the players got a vote.
Yeah, a starting nod in the all-star. Not an all-star vote, a starting all-star vote.
Yeah, a starting vote. That's incredible if you think about it.
Yeah. And again, we talked offline, like, to be a great athlete or almost anything, you have to have that uber confidence in oneself. And I guess on the one hand, you could applaud it and be like, well, I'm glad you think you're that good. But at the same time, if we talk just the East, and you're talking about Giannis, Embiid, and Durant are your starting. I mean, who are you in the NBA that thinks you should be starting over one of those guys? Maybe Jason Tatum, maybe Jaylen Brown, but for the most part, they're just aren't guys. And you hear some of the rationale, and basically, there's a number of foreign players that only vote for players from their country to start, which, again, isn't the best rationale for having a vote. Matisse Thybulle and the other rookie on the 76ers basically said they voted for all 76ers, which, again, you love the team, but if we're talking about the vote itself, and we want the vote to be reflective of what's happening during the season, it seems like the players may be the most out of touch of everybody voting. Despite, because at least you could
recognize. I'm trying to think if Robin Lopez, if somebody voted for Robin Lopez to start over one of the three people you mentioned.
I'm sure somebody did on one of those teams. I mean, you said it's 60% of the league thinks they deserve to start. I mean, got to vote to start in the NBA All-Star game.
Oh, let me give you an example. Let me see if you're Bam Adebayo, do you think you're as good as those guys?
I think I am. I hope it would be one of those situations where I can recognize.
That's one I could see.
Yeah.
That I could make an argument for.
But I'm even hoping if I'm Bam and I'm looking, let's say, just at Embiid and Giannis this year, that maybe I recognize internally that I am as good as them, but I at least have enough perspective to realize that maybe this season I haven't put up the season that they put up. And that I need to, get back in the gym and work a little harder, improve my, whatever that would be. Where you're still confident, but, taking into account what's actually happening this season.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like the coaches pool in the NCAA, where they don't, first off, if you're an SEC guy, you want to vote for SEC teams because no matter what happens, it makes you look better.
True.
You're either beating or losing to really great teams. And you're not watching, if you're an NCAA coach, you are not watching the Mountain West unless you're playing the Mountain West. You're not watching the Pac-12 unless you're playing the Pac-12 game. So, where I think NBA guys definitely watch more NBA, it's just that you would think the people that seemingly would have the most knowledge seem to make the worst votes. Which is a little crazy.
And speaking of basketball, I was reading last night. I wasn't watching a lot, but I like having basketball in the background.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd watch Gonzaga San Diego, which was an ass kicking. It wasn't a close game. But then immediately afterward was UCLA and Arizona State came on. And I hadn't heard Bill Walton do a UCLA game. And I want to tell you, you talk about the ultimate homer that's also funny. He was awesome. I would watch another one just to listen to Bill Walton.
I can see that. Bill Walton's pretty fantastic.
He was just entertaining. He would just, he was so over the top. It was just so over the top. It was funny. He told the guy he was working with, if you don't like good basketball, you should just go home. You shouldn't be here with me. And, I think UCLA was losing by 10. And he goes, this is great basketball. If you don't like it, you should go home. Who says that to their partner on the air?
I love that he does.
Yeah.
It's like there's a viral video going around right now. I saw it on Instagram, but there's a reporter. I can't remember where he's from, but he is literally arguing against his job. It's a traffic reporter, and he is saying, they're asking him how it's going. He's like, well, I'm out here in terrible weather, putting my life at risk for something that can be found on every GPS, Waze, Google. He's like,
yeah.
He just goes on this long rant about all the ways his job has been replaced, and it's stupid to have him out here in this weather, risking his life to tell people something they already know before they listen to him, or have a million different ways to know. And it's pretty fantastic.
Well, I have an entertainment moment.
Okay.
If you didn't watch it last night, go to NBC On Demand and watch Saturday Night Live.
It was one of the better. I've only just watched, before we did the podcast, I watched up through Weekend Update, but it was definitely one of the better.
It was one of the best shows I've seen. And the guy from Bridgerton was tremendous. Really talented.
Yes, and I've never seen Bridgerton. I know it's on Netflix and it's
I've
very
never
popular.
seen it either. I didn't know who he was until he came out and started doing that first opening set.
Yeah.
But he was tremendous, and he could act, and he could sing, and he was hilarious. I thought he did a great job, and I thought the skits were tremendous. And if you don't like Ted Cruz, it's great watching.
Yes, because Eddie Bryant does an excellent Ted Cruz.
She was amazing.
She's been
I thought Chloe Fineman was a good Britney Spears.
Yes, she really was. I have a pseudo food moment.
Okay.
As you know, I've been trying to find all the pizza pop-ups. Mm-hmm. And Molly's Rise and Shine, which is basically, it's more of a breakfast spot. They have a Detroit-style pizza pop-up. And you order the day of, they give you a time to pick it up, just like all the other places I've been talking about. And Detroit-style, if you don't know, it's cooked in like a sort of a deep dish pan. It's typically almost like a buttery focaccia-like bread. Usually the cheese is melted all the way to the edges. You get that crisp edge, and then they put the sauce on top and the toppings on top. It's somewhere between, it's a little Sicilian, a little everything else. But the pizza had 8 slices. And when we first got up there, because it was a $30 pizza, we saw the picture. They had the box taped to the wall. And we're like, that's a pretty small pizza. And then they handed it to me. And I immediately told Maria that it was the heaviest piece of food I've ever felt in my entire life. And we got home, we weighed it on a scale. This 8-slice pizza was 5 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah.
And?
It did have the crispy edge. The edge was really good. Because if you get that burnt cheese butter edge on a pizza, it's pretty outstanding. But I would also say, and people that know me, and especially my parents, I'm sure you'll know this. This is the most cheese I've ever had on a pizza in my entire life.
Oh my God. There's a statement.
I think
From
three of,
somebody that not only would order double cheese, but triple cheese.
if available, yes, because I feel like this was like, I don't think I've ever had this. Like, it was almost like if you took a cheese stick and melted it, and it would be like, what, half an inch? It was like a half an inch layer of cheese on this pizza.
Okay, so for you, was it too much or just right?
It was a little too much. I mean,
whoa, there's a statement again.
well, it was really the entire pizza. Like I said, it had good flavor and it had some highlights, but a 5-pound pizza. I don't know how much a Lou Malnati's from Chicago style weighs, but I don't think that's even 5 pounds.
Nowhere near that.
Yeah.
My Bartolini's meatball pizza, it's a lot bigger than what you described.
Right.
It only weighs about 8 pounds.
Yeah.
It's meatball pizza.
Because I would say this box, it was not like it's not much larger than like a MacBook Pro laptop, which is not a huge,
Oh yeah, you're right. That's pretty heavy for that size.
And like
my Bartolini's meatball thing is huge.
Like I said, I couldn't. I mean, the whole time home, I've been like, this is the heavy. I've never held a piece of food this heavy before. Felt like I bought a turkey and was bringing it home.
Wow.
So the jury's sort of out. Like I said, if you have when they said it served 2 to 3, and I saw the box, I was like, yeah, I guess if everybody has 1.5 slices, but then one slice of this was like just monstrous.
Well, we know that's the style of the month because Pizza Hut unveiled theirs.
They did.
And I have to admit, it looks good. I'm not ready to go buy one, but it looks good on TV.
Well, if you haven't, and like I said, typically Detroit is it's like a light Sicilian, like I said, but a lot of oil, butter, and the burnt cheese edges. So it's a pretty. I'm surprised it hasn't. Jet's Pizza, which is a chain. I know we have it in Florida. We don't have it here. Yeah, that's a pretty good representation. They have the 4-corner Detroit pizza you can get, and that's a pretty good representation of Detroit. If you have a Jet's in your area, if you wanted to try Detroit,
I'm gonna try that. I haven't tried it yet.
Yeah, the Jet's is pretty solid for a chain.
I have to admit, the Pizza Hut one made me want one, but I didn't want it from Pizza Hut.
No, because if you eat the sauce from Pizza Hut, you can taste the can in the sauce, which you never really want the metallic flavor. I don't know if it's possible to find a cheaper tomato that Pizza Hut appears to use. A little shade on Pizza Hut, but that's okay because I'd never order their food anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, no entertainment moment here, sadly.
Oh, and I finished Your Honor on Showtime last week.
And you still continue.
And I'm not going to give away the ending, but I'm going to say it was Shakespearean.
Okay.
And I would recommend it highly. And I would say it's one of the most intense TV shows I've ever seen, including The Sopranos and Ozark.
Oh, wow.
This might be more intense.
Okay.
But it was very, very, very well done. And I approved of the ending.
Very nice.
Yep.
Well, as we'll still continue to talk football on the show because we talk football, 24/7, 365, as they say. But we'd love some audience, especially as we head into the summer months or, get closer and closer. Like, we'd love some more audience participation and all those good things. So, continue to hit us up.
Well, you
on
did get
Twitter.
some praise on my Twitter account for your pizza selection that you've recommended. Chase went to both to the places you recommended.
Oh, nice.
And he gave them thumbs up.
Yeah. I mean, I won't recommend bad pizza. Like I said, Molly's, which was interesting, I can't give it a recommendation. But if the things I described are something you'd want to eat. Again, all fresh and good ingredients. But just a bit much.
Oh, I want to close it. I have some news.
Okay.
I am going to Stillwater next month for the Oklahoma State Vanderbilt baseball series.
Okay.
So I'm going to go see 3 baseball games live and in person because I didn't see any baseball games live and in person in 2020.
Yeah, that's rare for you.
So I'm going to go to these, and I asked Ben Charrington, the Pirate GM, who's a former student of mine, who I should watch because the Pirates have the #1 pick. And he said, whoever pitches Friday for Vanderbilt, and whoever pitches Saturday for Vanderbilt.
Okay.
He goes, those are 1A and 1B that they're thinking about.
All right. That is exciting.
Yep. So I'm going to have fun watching that.
Yeah.
Well, everybody, if you're in cold weather, it should be breaking. So hopefully you made it through the week and you're okay and everything happened. hopefully you made progress in getting your vaccines if you're over 60.
Or you're just lucky at the right moment. Because apparently that happens
Or if
too.
you're lucky at the right moment, yep. But COVID's down in all 50 states, so keep it going. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep wearing a mask and keep being smart about it.
And if you need more proof that masks work, flus and colds were down in every state this year. So, I mean,
Yeah, good point.
And moving forward, as the Japanese do, if you're feeling a little under the weather, since you're probably going to have 50 of them in your house, throw on a mask that day and don't spread your germs around.
There you go.
Moving forward. All right.
Everybody have a good week.